We're going to go live just right now. I see that we have, let's see if we can get these working right. There you go. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We are going live right now on the Facebook pages and everything else. Somebody let me know that you can see me. This is the Coffee Break Show. I'm Vickie Helm. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being live with us today. And I want to let you know that if you're new here, we go live Monday through Friday, and where we share tips, tools, techniques, all kinds of inspiration, motivation, and things that help you create thrivability in your life. We talk about the good conversations, the funny conversations, and the hard conversations. And today we're going to tackle one of the hardest conversations going on this morning in the news, in the world today. And good morning, good morning, good morning. Nice to see you all coming aboard. I'm in the Facebook group and see you. Greetings. Do me a favor, somebody check Metadime new page and tell me if you can see me. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to say to you, I'm a little sad this morning. I woke up to some interesting news that is happening in the world. Good day, all. Nice to see you, Ryan. Nice to see you. So glad you're here with us. Today is going to be an important day to talk about, and I'm a little choked up this morning because of the news headlines this morning about the state of Pennsylvania and their House of Representatives. And if you're new here with us every single day, thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with us. Today, or yesterday night, a video was released by the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania. First off, good morning, good morning, good morning. Metadime is live. Thank you very much, Karen. So what happens right now is that in the state of Pennsylvania, and you guys, you don't understand, I love Pennsylvania. I have a lot of people in Pennsylvania that I love. It's like a secondary home for me. It's where my spouse was raised and went to school and was educated. It holds Temple University. It is a piece of iconic America, the state of Pennsylvania is. It is the history of America, the state of Pennsylvania is. And this morning, Brian Sims put out a really, really big video about how I'm in Pennsylvania. Thank you, Ryan. That's what I thought. I thought you were in Pennsylvania as well. I love that state. Brian Sims put out a video about how one of the, he said Republican. I'm like going to say one of the people in his office had COVID and didn't tell everyone. And it's spread all over the place. For weeks, he has had COVID. And what ended up happening is he didn't tell anyone. He told everybody it was safe to go back to work, that everything was just going to be fine, and that things were going to be all right, just going back into Pennsylvania. And he tried to open it up without telling them that he had COVID. And it broke my heart because it brought up a past memory. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Look who's here to join us. I missed you, sister. I'm glad you're with us today. Anyway, so what ended up happening was there was this deep part of my heart that remembered the 1980s when HIV came out. And when HIV came out, it was gay men were dropping like flies. And a lot of them were our brothers and sisters who were just dying and dying and dying, HIV and AIDS. So what ended up happening was some people didn't tell other people that they were infected with the HIV virus, and they, consummated or whatever they did, and they kept spreading the virus without telling everybody. And I used to think, who could do such a thing? Who could do such a thing that would be like, hi, I've decided today to endanger your life because I feel like it and I don't want to tell you. A lot of the people who did it were bitter and angry and liars. And so what ended up happening was you'd have your heart broken, but then about 6 months later, they would die. And right now we are at a time where people are talking about COVID as if that it's like something they can overcome. Like the COVID pandemic isn't real. The COVID pandemic, I've had friends who had it. I've seen them suffer. I've known some who died. It's very rampant. There's 100,000 cases. But part of the cell, and I wish Scott, if I send you a link, will you come on the show with me, please? Because I'm going to start using terms that you know and I don't. And if you're on, do me a favor and just say, yeah, send me a link. But what's happening is in this virus, there is a component inside the virus that has HIV. It's it's highly contagious. And so people think, well, if you wear a mask or you don't wear a mask, I'm not talking about the people who wear a mask or don't wear a mask. I'm talking about you cuss word people who know you have it and go out there and are angry that you have it. Thanks. I'm going to send you an invite link right now through Messenger on Facebook. I'm adding Scott on here because he's got all the, nucleus and all the cell pieces of this virus in a pretty good state right now. But what I'm looking at is those people who do not, have not, will not tell people that they actually have the virus. Scott, I'm going to put it in Team Metadime, okay? So just go there and pop it on. This morning is very serious because my point is, if the politicians will lie to other politicians, you can bet that they're lying to you. That's the whole point. If they're not taking care of their own, they're not going to take care of you or your own. And that to me meant if they did that to themselves, we are at war with our own politicians, with our own government, with our own people. Do you get that? If they're unwilling to be honest with each other, it's the House of Representatives. It's supposed to be the most dignified office in the land. And you can't share it with other people. You don't understand. We are at war. We are at a big war. It's bigger than anything here. Thank you. I'm going to pop him on. And remember, I just want to let you know, Scott, I dropped him on here. I didn't give him a chance to do anything. I'm going to just bring him on the call with me right now because I think this is important. And Scott, the reason I'm bringing him on, he's our investigative journalist. He's worked for every major news thing that you can think of, has years of experience in this. He's a scientist, an economist, and a futurist. And it's the futurist that I think you need to hear about, because most people are thinking, we're not at war, or we're not, this isn't, hey, thanks for dropping in this morning with me, unexpected. I don't even have earbuds on right now, but this is so important. Do me a favor. Do you have a, give me a sound check right now.
I'm in.
There you go. Thank you.
Check, sorta.
Yeah, thank you.
One or the other.
So this morning, the thing that got me was that in the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania, one of the most important states in the union, one of the nicest states in the union, the people there, their House of Representatives, Brian Sims, he is a Democrat. And I have it up on here as well. The Republican head of their house had COVID while he was telling everybody it was safe to go back to work, while he was in that building, spreading it everywhere, spreading it to everyone without saying anything that he knew it. So he was protecting his family, he had them away, but he wasn't protecting anyone else's family. And I just feel like this to me is a tipping point. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I do. Because we're going to probably discover in time that there were a lot more of these situations, maybe not in government, but certainly in the corporate world and even within families themselves, where, I don't know, in families, you think if somebody begins to come down with the flu or cold or just that sore throat, that we're all on heightened alert and go, back away, stay in your room. And even then, how do you self-isolate at home and keep your family safe if you don't have a large home? like Chris
Yeah.
Cuomo did. He could go to the basement, but still the dog ran back and forth, up and down the stairs to, be with his master and then go be with the rest of the family. So
Yeah. And I
I'm
like
not,
this. Ryan's up here and he's like, it's a silent war. Now, I'm not sure there's a depopulation agenda or not, but I'm starting to believe that there might be.
yeah.
But my point is we keep looking towards these leaders to lead, and they're not. They're deceiving, they're propagandized, and we are blind if we follow anyone right now. I feel like we're going to the blind leading the blind.
How do you know
The
who to
silent
follow?
war includes censorship, and there's a lot of that going
Yeah.
on. You
Yeah.
just talked about that yesterday.
How do you know who to follow? How do you know
Yes.
who is? And I'm going to go back to where you kind of began this, where we have and had and probably still do to some extent these either religious figures, political figures who were secretly gay, and
Mm-hmm.
then being very anti that movement, even though they were. So it's a function of projection.
Yeah, Ted, what was his name? Pastor Ted.
Oh, Pat, I mean, the list is long. The
Yeah.
list is long.
Yeah.
We would be here until tomorrow afternoon if we wanted to go through the whole list and kind of dissect their stories.
I want to jump in right here for a second and pull this up. The explosion of HIV/AIDS in the 1980s was devastating and heartbreaking. So many friends died. The government and the research world shared lives. People were misinformed. Oh my word, COVID is repeating the horror. I totally agree with this. We are being misinformed and we're not getting the truth. And they've divided us between those who think it's fake, those who think it's a pandemic, those who think it's a virus, those that came from a bat, those who think it's a virus that snuck out of Wuhan, out of Canada. Who's to blame? Blah, blah, blah. They're dividing us.
And in that circumstance, it was easy to stigmatize a group. So you could lay blame on the quote unquote spreaders. So it was easy to set aside, the gay men and say they're the problem. And you could truly have
yeah. Good morning, Donnie. Poor guy is like, Don. Man, Vickie, I'm going to kill
like,
you later.
You caught me in a trap, dude. No, I'm good. I'm not going to do that on the air.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so this is different. And I also wanted to say that this epidemic is moving along at probably 100 times the speed.
Yeah.
So
more people faster. Know about.
Yeah.
The second wave to me is I'm really
HIV. You couldn't get at the grocery store.
That's right. You couldn't go down the aisles.
It didn't, that did not happen. So this is in many ways fundamentally a different experience at its core. And I believe it's designed to be. And when you have the dude, Luc Montagnier, a Frenchman who isolated the HIV virus, saying in no uncertain terms that this was an engineered virus and that it would take many, many generations for it to revert back to its original coronal form, if it ever does. Wow. That we're in this for the long haul. So I have to assume that it was either a planned epidemic or an accidental epidemic, but nevertheless, the virus was touched by the hand of man. And
now, if you understand this point that he just made right now, you can see where there's cover-ups going on, no matter what, the blame, the this, the that, whatever. However, the cover-up this is a global pandemic. It's global. It's hopped everywhere around the world. And nobody, I want you to hear me. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to come and make sure that you're safe, your family's safe, that your politics are safe, that your rights are safe. Nobody.
Well, all they can do is save your income or save your financial resources, because
possibly
that's all they've got in there. You can't print up a vaccine. You can't print up this or that, but all they can do is give you free money to ameliorate your reaction to the event. And when it becomes known that it wasn't a planned incident, because Anthony Fauci, whatever you think of him, good or bad, because if you're aware of his actions back in the 80s, then that will absolutely color how you look at that man's comments on the news and his activity, and it won't be through the best of eyes. He said just before the Obama administration ended and they handed over the reins to Trump that there would be a surprise epidemic. And I believe that's a pretty good quote. I believe that's fairly accurate.
I think the second wave is going to happen. And when the second wave happens, it is going to be worse than the first wave. And the reason I did think that, it's like, let me just tell you something. Someone who walks around the House of Representatives, a government building, knowingly, willingly, understanding that they had COVID, not wearing a mask, not doing anything, knowing that you were a spreader at that point, that is the height of human arrogance. That is the height of human ego. And right now, we are going to die because we are so arrogant.
It's an arsonist.
Yes, it's an arsonist, essentially. That's what it is.
Yep,
and in the state of Pennsylvania, they have
coffee, legit coffee.
They do have legit coffee, and they have really great sandwiches. You know,
but in PA, yeah. So it was in his congressional office, because Vickie, I have not seen that story yet. I have not.
I want to pull this up because Donnie's helping us out today. It's interesting. He's got a Snopes thing here for COVID.
Oh, good old Snopes.
Yeah, and it'll be in there. Yeah. So the thing I know is that what I want to tell you is that this is the highest, most important tipping point in this whole COVID thing, in my opinion. I'm upset because I can't believe that people would do that. I'm upset because I can't believe people would be so crazy as to take politicians, the land in the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania, going in there and lying, withholding with it. I mean, that to me is like the height of just hypocrisy. Then telling everybody, oh yeah, sure, it's safe to go back.
What's the average age? What's the average age of these representatives? I really don't care whether you're in a state house or in the national house, the Congress or Senate.
I know they have families right now.
But
I know they have young families.
Elderly. They're typically elderly. And, you know, depending on which mode of treatment you want to go through, whether it's the forbidden one or you want to go down the ventilator, the accepted main route, you know, there's, you know, we can see a significant, how do you say, attenuation or atrophy of the population.
I want to bring up, can you help bring up, Lisa, nice to have you on the show with us. And I see this, wait, what happened in PA? I live in PA. Thank you. Welcome to the Coffee Break Show. And I usually am very upbeat this morning. I am very sad this morning in the House of Representatives. The Republican House Speaker had COVID-19, didn't wear a mask, knew he had COVID-19, went to work every day. He protected his family, but he didn't protect anybody else's family. And literally the representatives are now locked down in a house. They don't even know if they can go home to their families because this Republican senator, who kept touting all week long, how important it is that we go back to work. And he said it was safe to go back to work, had COVID anyway, didn't tell another single soul inside the House of Representatives, and literally exposed everyone.
So we're talking about Mike Kelly.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go ahead. Brian Sims is the guy I listened to I was very heartbroken about what's happened. And to me, that's a tipping point. And Lisa, the reason I'm saying this right now, that it's a tipping point, is because these are political brethren. I mean, this is like Scott having COVID and not telling me, and working with him every single day without him telling me, rightfully knowing.
Yeah, he partially isolated, it looks like. He missed a vote last weekend on the $2 trillion coronavirus thing. 219 comments. Oh, this was March 27. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So this story has evolved since then, apparently.
Mm-hmm. The point of this thing coming up, where we have this, and I want to say it, is because we miss all these stories happening. And that's the tipping point. Nobody, if they tell you it's safe, if they tell you it's safe to go back to work, if they tell you do this, do that, you've got to check in with yourself. If you think I'm healthy enough, I'll survive it, I'll do this, I'll do that, those tipping points right now.
That's an assumption. That's just an
Yeah.
assumption that it's safe, and we don't know. And there's too many, and this is part of the censorship that's going on, is we don't know, really what's going on about the virus. We've got a set of doctors coming out and say ventilating is not the answer. There's these other protocols. We've got Italy that has really brought this thing under control, and they potentially are using some very non-traditional, although very basic and fundamental treatments, and not going down the expensive ventilator.
I'm sorry.
routes.
I want to make a correction here. It's State Representative Andrew Lewis.
Okay.
And it's May. It happened that we have things that are an hour old. Andrew Lewis.
That's
the
different.
House of Rep. Yeah.
It's Pennsylvania congressman. That was the better part of 2 months, if not all of 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that makes more sense.
The thing about that is that now that we have this spreading, now that we have this moving, my point is this morning I felt like I think our leaders are doing the best job they can. Now I don't think so. I don't think they're doing the best job they can when they expose each other to it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
Don't think that's it.
I don't know. I'm going to go back to 9/11, an obvious false flag, and, with 20 years of hindsight. And if the events are similar, how do you discuss appropriately the event without knowing or talking about the facts with your audience, with your constituents? And if this is a virus, maybe versus a bacteria, if this is a bioweapon that has been deployed versus an accidental release, if it is, setting the stage for a further, ramping down of a police state, of surveillance state versus, a healthcare emergency, how do you determine and ferret out where those lines are? Yeah. And if it's an accident and you've got integrity in office, then it's a healthcare emergency. But if there is an other agenda that we shall not speak of, then we're going to tell little lies through the entire narrative.
And
all the way through.
I think that's the point right there. I think that, and I want to bring up Donnie's post. It's a big one. It'll probably cup up a piece of our face.
Thanks for the shirt, by the way, Don.
Coronavirus created an attempt to find an AIDS vaccine. Nobel laureate claims French virologist and medicine Nobel Prize laureate Luc, whatever his last name is, Montagnier, sparked controversy Sunday when he claimed that the virus, officially called SARS, was not only man-made, but it's the result of a Chinese attempt to produce a vaccine against AIDS. So we're looking at the possibility of so many of these cover-ups. And the thing is, it's like putting a 10,000 puzzle piece together. Like, here's the puzzle. It's not 1,000 piece, it's a 10,000 piece puzzle. And you're putting in pieces in it. And people have sabotaged the puzzle for you by putting in these little lies along the way. So you can't clearly see this possible agenda that's going on. And, I used to think that I would never cover the conspiracy theory piece of it. But I was, talking to Ryan, talking to you. And I'm starting to think that it's not conspiracy theory. I hate that word. I'm going to tell you what it is. There's alternative facts and there's alternative knowledge. So I'm going to talk about alternative knowledge right now and alternative facts, the facts that you don't want us to know. I think labeling it conspiracy theory, yes, are there quacks out there? You betcha. And some of them are in our government right now. Some of them who think spreading something like that is okay, that it's not something to worry about. 1 hour ago, Pennsylvania Democrats outraged after GOP lawmakers COVID-19 diagnosis, and you didn't say anything to anybody. You exposed everyone, even after you knew. That's the tipping point. If they will harm their own, think about that.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
point where you have to look at your own life and say, okay, what's good for us, my family right now? How do I gather my own knowledge, and unfortunately, if you are just mainstream news, if that's the only thing you're watching, if that's the only thing you're involved in, you are hosing yourself right now.
Well,
You have to look at everything.
watching the mainstream news is like being on the bow of a ship and only looking at your surroundings through a pair of binoculars. You don't see the whole view. You don't see the rocky crags. You don't see the sandbars coming up from below. You don't see your surroundings. And this is a good point. Why would an antibacterial and anti-malaria drug work on a virus? And I had a video sent to me today that in Italy, they had determined, I don't know, this is hearsay, and this is probably why we're dealing with such censorship, that it's more bacterial. And we're dealing with thrombosis in the veins rather than a virus. But that doesn't account for what the Indians said, when they did the first DNA, well, not the first, but one of the earliest ones that was released to the world, that it did have these additional inserts inside the virus. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot we don't know, and there is even more that's being kept from us.
And here's the thing. I want to say this right up. Lisa, thank you for being on the show today. This is the issue. I have a part-time job and I work with the public and do not want to be called back.
Yep.
But what choice is there when you need income and your job? I am not comfortable with it. Yes. This is the dilemma right here. This is the dilemma. And instead of saying the truth, you could say the truth. There's a possibility and a risk of going back. There is. And this is the quagmire people are stuck in.
Yep. And
right now.
I would like to see these alternative treatments being able to be over the counter. So we don't have to go to the hospital where there are the potentially many other infected, to where you could your how do you say, your tribe that would go with you to the hospital to get you through the situation would then become infected or at risk of a great viral load or bacterial load, whatever it is, when you go into that environment. We need to be able to treat ourselves at home. And when you feel that first threat of being infected, that you can go on these treatments pronto.
Yes.
And
what is that?
Where they're most effective. I want to say hydrocortisone, but it's not. It's not
hydrochloroquine or something like
that.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Really
I can say it until I get on in front of this camera, and I'm like, where the hell did that word go?
Hey, so Lisa, I want to say this is why everybody wants the country to open up again. This right here, this is the real problem. This is the real issue. This is the thing that absolutely is the cause of choosing human life. Yep. Let's bail out the banks, but let's not bail out the people. Let's give them pittance. $1,200 per person. That's pittance. At this point, the amount of families and food and everything else that has been destroyed because of this has put our country on a path that is absolute anarchy, destruction.
And Brazil's in the same situation.
That's
Paraguay
right.
and Ecuador, and it's all the same. We're all in this same boat. And I know that we will see some of these other countries who are maybe not so wealthy, but they will have to go what in the States would be the alternative route for healing, simply because that's the only solution they can afford, provided they can get the medicines, because they don't have that capability to manufacture them like we do.
Yeah. And we have right now, and I want to say, Lisa, you are on fire today. This is really the truth. She is saying what a lot of the world is wondering. Well, the story has changed like every other week. Every other week we get, oh, it's not this, it's not kind of this kind of, what's the story? The more confusion in the story that comes from our politics, our governments, the more confusion about that story that happens, the more it feels like something is being covered up.
Yep.
The more it feels like there's another agenda on there. The more confusion you bring, the more people are being, we're taking up arms and saying, okay, now wait a minute here. Wait a minute here.
How do you deploy a response? And I'm going to use a military analogy when all you can see is the fog of
Yes,
war. How do you deploy your artillery? How do you deploy your air assets? How do you deploy the Navy if all you can see is the fog and maybe hear some things? And that's what's missing is clarity on the situation.
that is exactly what's there. And because of that, Lisa doesn't have enough information,
Yep.
real information, to make a decision for herself. Do I go back to work and expose myself, or I don't go, or I go back to work and I'm safe? Which is it?
Yep.
And that is a big conversation, Lisa. And I just want to say, I want to just put this up as well. Thank you, Donnie. Unfortunately, we're being bombarded with so much information. What is real? Question mark. How do we use our discernment in times of a pandemic? If we look at history, such as the Spanish flu reopening, it could be catastrophic, and I believe it will. I believe it will. Will history repeat itself? Well, that depends on the individual. And I want to get really, really clear here. I had a friend of mine who I love very dearly who lives in Pennsylvania. And when she heard about the pandemic coming, it was months and months and months and months and months earlier. And her husband didn't believe it was going to come here or happen or nothing. And he was kind of that same arrogant. And she was like, well, you know what? I'm not waiting around. And she took action back then. She stocked them up and everything else. And in that lockdown, she saved her family. She saved her family by taking an action in spite of being belittled, in spite of being mocked, in spite of it being here, in spite of it being so far off, like it couldn't get here, not possible.
Oh, but it did.
And it did. It came right here. And
she saved jet travel.
She saved her family's life. That's right. And we look at that and we're so afraid of being mocked or belittled or made fun of or judged or being called something like a prepper or whatever. So what? You need to make decisions for yourself right now, because we have just proved that politicians don't have the dignity to speak up to other politicians and say, guess what? I have the virus. I'm quarantining myself. Maybe we'll do a little quarantining, but you know what? You went around the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania, and that means you kind of just turned on each other.
Vickie, we're going to be talking about wave 2 all summer long. This virus is 15 times more prevalent than it was when the lockdowns began 10 weeks ago. So as we begin to open, as we go to the Ozarks, as we go to the beach, as we go outside with or without mask, we're at a greater risk, far greater risk than we were just 10 weeks ago. And it's interesting because we can now see where the weaknesses are in the supply chains, within the healthcare system, within education, within even the internet, because we're seeing it kind of moan under the weight of all of the video conferencing that we're having. And we'll probably not see congressmen and state representatives doing a lot of in-person negotiating, backroom deals, and so forth and so on, because of these arsonists that go into the buildings with the virus.
Are. If you know you have COVID and you go into a building and you don't wear a mask and you go to work every single day knowing that you have COVID, you are an arsonist.
Yep.
You are.
And
you
this
are
is the other thing.
Spreading it that way.
Lisa just hit us up again with the contact tracing. And there was a new iOS update where it allows for apps to then use your data to associate you with nearby people. So they're warning people, don't update your iPhone with version 13.5, which adds the basic foundational structure for these contact tracing apps. But for better or for worse, it's upon us. Yeah,
it is. It's right here, right now. And I want to let you know, in a war, everything is up for grabs, including your rights and your liberties. And we have to look at 9/11. And I want to talk about that right now. Ryan, it has multiple aspects of this virus, and the anti-malarials work to address the point that affects lungs. There are portions that affect blood clotting. and their different combinations of meds, herbs, supplements are positively affecting seriousness of symptoms and durations. Yes, a lot of alternatives are coming up that help. So I want to go over this right now. Okay, I want you to think about this. What country did 9/11 happen in? What was the country that it happened in? Well, it happened in America. And America sets the tone for the rest of the world. So it didn't happen in Australia, and it didn't happen in the UK. No buildings were in there, etc. We have TSA agents in the United States, probably almost a decade now, where it's like bin Laden is already dead. It's already dead. Why do they have these TSA agents and these things over in Australia? There's nothing that's ever happened there. Why can you not go walk up to the gate and meet your spouse there with a flower and a hug and I missed you? Why can't you go up there and do that? Nothing has ever happened there.
Yeah.
Why are these new rules spreading around the world just because the United States did it?
So we have to look at what agreements what security agreements we have with these other countries, and whether it's the airlines open. What is the open skies agreement? And you see on these aircraft, say United Airlines, they've got this, it's like 7 stars in a circle around the front of the jet. You walk into it, or you see it as you're going down the airway. You're like, it's the United agreement. So there's agreements, and what happens in, say, New Zealand. If it's an event and they're part of Five Eyes, we all just tend
we
to
all
fall
just
in
automatically
line.
do it.
Just
And who's the
like
most
the Nazis in Germany, they're
Yeah.
rounding up people. And there were those people who said, this is not for me. And they didn't wait. They got out. And it was just like us prepping for the virus. We prepared.
Yep.
You take action. If you don't take action, what can be done for you?
That's right. And here's the thing. This is, whether you think it's a long-term plan, a short-term plan, that doesn't matter. The plan is unfolding and you need to look for evidence yourself, not in a movie, a good piece of evidence is when the reason I'm saying this today, the reason I'm upset is it's kind of bursted my bubble of illusion that I like to live in. It's bursted the thoughts that were there, that were before, and it hurts. And I love America. You have no idea how much I love America. I love what it stood for, but its principles of what it normally stood for is missing. I am not a Democrat nor a Republican. I think both parties are absolutely corrupt beyond compare. I think they're all part of that propaganda machine. I think they're all part of the misleading machine. I do not believe that our government is sane anymore. And I believe we're losing our sanity as well.
Are any of those parties actually worth defending?
I know.
As soon as you say, I want to vote for this dude or this dude, you're defending the actions of that entire apparatus.
Yes.
And I don't think any one of us would want to stand in front of a judge and say, do you agree with this? Would you support that? Your taxpayers are going to this. So then you've entered, as we've learned, a form of slavery to defend the position that you have adopted. And I'm sorry, it's time for a third party. It's time for this
something.
I'm
an independent voter, and I have been for a long time. Thank you for this. Now, I want to say, you're thinking, so what do I do? So what do I do? What do I do? Well, I want to let you know that the point that Lisa made earlier about the information changing every day, and I want to let you know that we put hours every day monitoring this. We want to be the first to tell you. We want to be the first to give you options, the first to give you a different kind of news. Now, I want to let you know why we do these lives now and why we created Metadime. We created Metadime because the mainstream news isn't reporting everything as it can. The other thing the mainstream does is the mainstream media twists the narrative to fit their agenda. They twist the story, they manipulate everything. But when you go live, when you're live and you're seeing it live, talking about it live, you cannot manipulate the narrative. It's not like I can go back now and make another video and say, no, Scott really said this, and this is what he really meant.
It's on the record.
And
record.
if you go to my page, my Vickie Helm personal page, you'll see an article about what they are calling. We had Tamara McCleary on last week, and she talked about
Right.
this, and she talked about there being AI that is going to potentially confuse us more. It's called deep fakes. And what they are is AI's ability to make deep fake videos, and that they're getting so good at making these fake videos over and over again that they're literally moving the narrative.
So
Well,
what we're
go
looking
ahead.
at is before we could see a picture of someone doing something in a compromising position. If you want to look at NASA or some of the evidence of things that we shall not speak of, the retort could be, well, that's just photoshopped. And now we've applied this to video. That they didn't really say that he didn't do that, evidence that was whatever that was, that was captured by somebody's phone. That is
Yeah.
just a deep fake. So it adds a layer of uncertainty or the inability to believe what's in front of you. Whether it's
Yes.
true or it's a deep fake, it adds uncertainty. And therefore, we're back into the fog of war.
Dissonance. That's right. And this is the thing I need to hear you. I've never stated this before. I'm heartbroken to state this. I hate believing that this is true, but we are in a silent war.
Mhm.
You are in a silent war. And the sooner you accept that you're in a silent, fog driven, unseen war, you will understand the number one thing they're after. The number one thing they're after is your attention and your focus on it. And if you don't remove your attention and your focus from all this hoopla and say, what can you actually see? Because the difference is, Lisa, we don't know what to do when we're going outside of ourselves for the answer.
Yep.
And we've been taught to do that. We've been taught to go to ABC, NBC, CBS, every news media, BBC, any kind of read the newspaper. Yes, any kind of anything outside of ourselves to get the answer.
So if we don't know what their agenda is, how can you tell if they're being truthful?
Yes, especially after today.
Yep. We don't know. We don't know. And so this is why the YouTubes and the citizen journalists have become so important, because they have provided us by the billions with a different point of view on these subjects. And I think we're seeing the president will probably announce rather shortly today some kind of let's just say leveling the playing field when it comes to social media and their ability to say or tell us what is true and what is not true, because then they become a different kind of platform and subject to different federal regulation. And part of me doesn't like to see that happen, because I'd hoped we hadn't degenerated to that point. But right now, we need to call out those people who are saying, they're yelling fire when they're the ones causing the fire.
That's right. That's right. Today's a big get. I pretty much could believe anything, but when you are in your own thing, I want to put this up from Ryan, because this is really true.
That's
this
it.
really works. There's the medicine right now that's working. But this is a big thing right here. You have to figure out your own income. You're going to have to do this. And can I let them in on our little secret?
Please.
Okay. Scott and I have been working on a super secret project. In fact, for the first time in the history of this show, I had taken the show and said, let me work on this super secret project while I get this done. Because I want to say that the big, bold step we are taking is to put you in front of the information you're going to need to weather the aftermath and during math of this pandemic. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have to look at income production differently. You're going to have to look at how to grow and help yourself, feed yourself. There's so much that's going to be happening that travel isn't going to be as easy as it has in the past, or there's going to be a lot of staycation, if you will. And the point here is that if you're in highly populated areas, you're not going to know who around you has COVID. In fact, the person you're around might not know they have COVID, and their intention isn't to harm you.
This is what Bill Gates wants. He wants that injection. So A, we can track you. B, we have a vaccination ID, and then also a signal to say whether you're positive or not. This virus is never going to go away. It's never going to go away. So it's something that for the rest of our lives, we're going to be dealing with. And either we get it and we're immune, or we hide from it. We avoid it. So what we need to know is, Robin is saying, we need that magic combination, because I don't believe, if we haven't been able to find a vaccine for HIV for coming up on 40 years now, what makes us even have the illusion that there'll be a vaccine for this? It's an RNA virus, for goodness sakes. It isn't going to happen. So the whole virus is a complete diversion. There is another agenda at play, and we need to be able to
realize that, to breathe it in.
Yeah.
So here's the facts of the facts right here, Deb. So many people did. My daughter's been prepping for years now. Good woman, smart woman. I used to make fun of her, as everybody did. Everybody made fun of preppers. Not anymore. That's so true. It's really happening right now. So one of the things that I'm going to say is, I want to make this comment. Scott and I have been working on a book together.
Oh yeah, back to that.
Yeah. Well, not only that, Lisa's been having so many of these really great insights that I want to continue the conversation, even though I want to let you know, you guys, a coffee break is going over and we're just going to go ride with it today. Well, not only that, but the contact tracing. If we work with the public and go back to work and we have someone come in as a customer, and I was told that go home for 14 days, then I have no sick time or vacation and I can't get unemployment. This is going to devastate people even more financially who's paying my bills. That's right, Lisa. Lisa, I want to let you know I'm hearing you. It's so deeply ingrained in me right now. I am so listening to you, because this is the world. The world is not ready to go back to work, but this is the situation they're fighting. What are they supposed to do about it? Well, let's bail out another bank, because the repo market is important. Okay, I get that, but that's not the thing that's going to work right now. And Lisa, you are saying the truth. That's why the workers want to go back to work.
There'll be a universal basic income that shows up. There'll be a UBI, universal basic income, that comes. The challenge with that will be, who will want to go back to work when you make more on the UBI than you would at work. Yeah. And if it's taxable or not has yet to be, figured out. But we're in uncharted territories. We truly, truly are.
Yes, we are where nobody has been. And that's why I said it's a silent war. Because again, it's just like Scott said earlier, that fog that surrounds us right now, that fog of the unknown. You can hear a thing but you cannot see a clear path. And that is what they want.
Because we're not very few of us are medical professionals. We don't have the time, the resources, even at the state level, to set up double-blind tests. And how do you bring in a sick person and give them a placebo? I mean, seriously, how do you do that rather than another what could potentially be life-saving treatments? So I just have to trust that the states will kind of take a little initiative on their own, that there are 200 countries around the world that will take initiatives on their own and have access and figure out what really works. And even then, if they do, will others listen?
Yes. That's the key thing. Others won't listen, because the confusion is made on purpose. The confusion is so that it eliminates your discernment. And Lisa, this is another good point. You could potentially be sent home every day you go to work.
Good.
If that's true.
And if there's no customers showing up, then what's the point of going to work?
Yes, that's right. Do you think
the demand
it's like once you open doesn't mean they'll come? This is not like the movie, if you build it, they will come. If you open, they will come. A lot of businesses that are opening, there was a mall that opened and one person came that day.
And then it's an expense to open. You've got payroll, you've got utilities. It's an expense. And nothing's going back. We're just not going back to the way
Lisa,
it was.
I'm going to tell you that one of the most important things you can do is I'm going to give you a website. I want you to go to www.smartcashflowsecrets, Smart Cashflow Secrets, and I want you to read that. And if you are interested in learning about creating cash in this time, I will send you. Karen, get Lisa's address, and I will send her a copy of Smart Cashflow Secrets. Go right there right now and do that. That's at www.smart cashflow secrets. You'll see Scott's on the page. Just go ahead and be there with that. Arsonist is a good analogy. Thank you. It's hard to say this, but as of this morning, when you endanger a colleague knowingly, then knowingly, the issue here is that it was knowingly. It wasn't, oh, I got the virus and I just didn't know I had it. And, I felt it. It's knowingly. It's like that time back in the 80s where knowingly happened and people were angry or whatever. So in this kind of moment right now, I have to tell you, it's not every man for himself. That's not the answer. The answer right now is who and what is your community? And don't make your community over 5 to 6 people. Like, who's your community and how are you working together? And here's the thing. If you're like my friend in Pennsylvania, whose husband is like, no, this isn't going to happen. This isn't good. You are in the wrong community. You want to make a community that is going to take action. And I'm going to tell you right now 3 of the smartest actions you can make. 1, make a community garden because your food safety is first. Number 2, make sure that the people that you are with aren't traveling everywhere and going everywhere, etc., that they're willing to protect the community. And if they do, somebody comes up with a possible COVID, that they're willing to say something to my first friend who got COVID said, she went live on Facebook and said, I came back from an airplane trip. She was out in the beginning and she came back on the airplane. I have COVID. Please don't come to my house. I know that you are loving me and blah, blah, blah. And she quarantined herself right back. She never exposed any one of us at all. If you have friends that will do that, then you are in a good group. The second thing you want to make sure is that you have some sort of, and I'm going to say for me, I would use some sort of herbal medication because the process of having to create drugs is a manufacturing process. And I don't know if that'll be disrupted. So if you don't have access, you have to make access for you. Say something,
Well,
Scott.
just
there.
the trade wars already made that clear that so many of our consumed pharmaceuticals in this country, which are not required by law to have a made in label. So we could, a heart or high blood pressure medicine, all of it in China, basic aspirins, antihistamines, all made in China, but we have no idea because it's not required to be labeled to be made there. The other link in this chain is that those basic components, those basic compounds that are then shipped to China to bring it all together and then packaged, labeled, and shipped back out, originate in India. And there is this challenging situation showing up on the Chinese-India, what used to be Tibet, Indian border, where China is now building air bases, expanding them out, bringing in fighter aircraft, and have stationed nearly 10,000 soldiers now inside Indian territory. There is something about to go in India-China, and we're going to watch that in the next week to 2 weeks, and that will further complicate the supply chain of American pharmaceuticals, or what we believe are American pharmaceuticals, even if we own the patents, the license, and so forth. They're made 8,000 miles away. And there is no quick, easy solution to that. So
that is, you guys listen to that, because I agree here with Robin. Though that kind of information isn't out here, and that's why we have it here. That's why we have it now. I promise you we're going to continue delivering to you the latest news. But today was a big tipping point. Today was the tipping point that said, ooh, I got to pay attention. I would never do that to anyone in my life. I would never go up and say, yeah, it's safe to go back to work. No, I don't have a fever. I'm fine. No. It's just hot in here. I would never do that. And the second that you would do that to a friend, to a colleague, to a coworker, that says something about the integrity of what's happening right now. And I want to let you know so much. Nobody is coming to save you. No one.
Yep, it's not their
You have
responsibility.
to start in putting this responsibility on you. No one is going to tell you the truth. You're going to have to discern it through your mind. And I want to put this up right now. I believe a larger event is occurring, which we have yet to have on our radar. Something else is happening. And as we use our intuition, not the mainstream media, intuition, there's that feeling. An event unknown presently seems to be hiding in the background. It will reveal itself, and we need to see the shadow of mankind. This is so important. The shadow of mankind. It does not need to be revealed. As we evolve, the light becomes brighter. And as the light expands, so does the shadow. And this is where I want to end today, even though, oh my God, it's like on fire here. And
There's always tomorrow,
it's like,
Vickie. There's always tomorrow.
I know it's so on fire here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And you know what? I am going to have Scott on tomorrow. I am going to bring us both on. I'm not going to surprise him and say, I know you're having your morning coffee. Jump on with me right now.
I'll have a proper shirt on instead of just my morning t-shirt.
Thank you for jumping on with me. Today was heartbreaking. And for everybody in Pennsylvania.
But revealing.
Mm-hmm. For those people in Pennsylvania, all of you that I love and know and those that I don't know. Be careful. Be careful. Be aware. Follow your own intuition. We'll be here tomorrow with you. We're going to be researching more. And we'll see you all then. Peace out.